You go to industrial area if you are lucky. So I wanted to take a look at some of those amounts on our super wall just now as we talk about it and ask whether these are the people who are being cushioned right now. Okay, so this is what, a minimum wage earner would earn per day, 430 shillings, 89 cents, excuse me. So, and let's start with you because there's the subsidy. That is there right now, 90 shillings per 2 kilogram bag for a person that's earning this amount of money. And we also have another board where we took, just the average prices according to the National Bureau of Statistics of some of the major foods to see, how they would be distributing this money if they earned it at the end of today. Okay, but even as we do that, are the subsidies being done for the right people? It's being done at the supermarkets. Does everybody shop there? Talk to us about this current subsidy that's in place.
Well, I would have to study that to see whether the posho meals, etc., are getting the subsidized maize. But if they're getting maize from government, then it will be at a lower cost. And there'll also be a lot of resistance from people buying at posho meals if they're not getting it at 90 shillings. So
and
they
we
will
can
be pushed
tell you,
back.
actually, we have done our research in Western Kenya. It's still going for that same price. A gorogoro goes for 140. Costs you 10 shillings to transport it to the mill, the posho mill, and then another 10 shillings to mill that flour. And then, of course, that reduces, in volume once you've done that.
Well, I mean, if that's happening, then obviously that's problematic. But my broader concern with the subsidy is that there's money, that money is coming from somewhere. And which of the dockets that government has financed will be hit? Where is that money coming out of? It is unlikely to come out of things like security and infrastructure. So the broader concern I'm having is that we have a very short-term way of dealing with a very long-term issue that is going to have short and long-term problems because already government is overshooting on its borrowing already. And now we're subsidizing where we're taking money that we had planned to use on something else to deal with this emergency. So I think there are two things going on. If that subsidy is not hitting the right people, then that's a deeply problematic issue and that should be looked into. But I don't know how much can be done between now and August to make sure that even the poorest get that subsidy. And the second issue in terms of the medium to long term is how is our financial year going to be affected because of this, the billions that have been taken out of other parts of the budget to finance this.
In a very simple way, and say, are we going to be paying for this in another way?
Yes, we are.
I mean, we're going to buy unga cheaply for now, but there'll be a shilling here, a shilling there.
And this will come, I'm almost sure that this will come from domestic revenue. I don't think they're going to get into any borrowing to finance this. So we need to look at the elements of the budget that have been primarily financed by revenue generated by the government because that's where the money is coming out of. But I think the other issue that you're talking about in terms of 430 per day being minimum wage, I think that's pretty misleading because you have to remember that a lot of Kenyans sit in the informal economy and a lot of Kenyans are getting a lot less than that. Right. So even if you're getting 430 shillings a day, you're very lucky. Wow. You're well above the poverty line in this country, and you're actually starting to get into lower middle class status if you look at what the African Development Bank defines as lower middle class. Right. So I think we need to understand that 430 is very generous, to be perfectly frank with you, in this economy, but that there are millions of Kenyans that are not getting that money. Okay. That said, that minimum wage is still high from a global perspective. Okay. One of the problems that we're having as an economy, particularly trying to attract manufacturing into this country, is that our minimum wage is very high. We're higher than Pakistan, we're higher than Cambodia, we're higher than the Philippines. And not only is our minimum wage higher, we also have lower levels of productivity. So I think one of the issues that we need to think about is that I agree that minimum wage, should be where it is and that decision has been made.
But more
so really is how do we get the productivity up and running? And also how can we get more people in the informal economy to start earning that sort of wage?
Yeah, okay, interesting that you mentioned that. James, but there's also been the question about who's being subsidized, that it's the millers being subsidized and not the farmers. But we do know of, subsidies in terms of fertilizer, in terms of seeds. Is that not efficient? Someone was talking about just the sheer distribution of the fertilizer itself is problematic.
Well, I think the first thing, and I do understand where Nzeze is coming from, the first thing is to say we need to understand a bit of the political economy. And having worked in government for 1.5 years, you start to see how decisions are made. And sometimes decisions in a political environment are not made because they make economic sense. Sometimes they are made because they make political sense.
Right.
And here you are in an environment where the maize prices were shooting towards 200 shillings per 2 kg bag. And that in itself, forget about the fact that it's an election year, is not sustainable for somebody who is actually earning not 430, because I agree with her entirely. The people earning 430 are very few. We know very well that even house helps are paid much less than the minimum wage.
That's true.
So, getting to 200 shillings per 2 kg bag, it was unsustainable. And therefore, any reasonable government, should have reacted in order to intervene and bring the price to a sustainable level. And I'm saying sustainable level.
Okay.
The question is, it goes to shifted maize meal, like you're saying. It goes to supermarkets.
Right.
It takes slightly longer because I do know that traders are also accessing this maize at 2,500. So it takes a bit of time to get to the posho. Unfortunately, those are the people that need it more than the guys who are buying from the supermarket.
Right.
But the first thing I want to say is that I think it is responsible for a government to bring down the food price because food prices cause riots.
All right. Yes, they do.
Now, I also want to add one more
right
thing.
On that. But then it's going up until September. The rains are something else. They're not adequate. It's not raining where it should.
I wanted to comment on that and say that we have gotten into a situation which will be very, very difficult for us to come out of within the next couple of months. Because if you see, the long rains have actually almost failed. The harvest this year is likely to be inadequate, considering also that we had armyworm.
Okay, yes, that's right.
So we've entered into a very, very precarious situation that we need to think about.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt because we want to run a story just now, but the question, we want to come back and talk about solutions. So what happens post-September, when this subsidy will, now no longer be in and the rains are what they are. And, just if we can touch a little bit on the politics and whether this is something that Kenyans will be thinking about on ballot day. But we're talking about the cost of living, and as my panelists have said, it means different things to different people. But for the average university student who doesn't have a steady source of income, it takes a whole new meaning. One has to find means of coping. This is Catherine Watter's story.
Catherine Water Wambua is a third-year business student at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. Catherine lives less than 10 kilometers off campus and pays 3,500 shillings in rent. The past 2 years are more manageable for her, but today,
as students, we are seeing the difference because we are depending on kind of being given every kind of money we need for the specific requirements. That time I could have in every end month, if I'm given 3,000 to do shopping, I will do a large amount, a big number of everything that I need. But right now, when I have the 3,000, I wonder what to buy, what not to buy. And so I'm forced to squeeze some things.
Catherine spends an average of 200 shillings daily. Her lifestyle is what many campus students call the Kadogo economy, living small.
This is what you bought last?
Yeah, I bought this last.
Buying the cheapest brands and the smallest quantities.
That's ugali flour?
Students living in the campus hostels are not allowed to cook in their rooms and have to buy their meals from the mess or nearby malls.
For us to survive and study comfortably, we must have food. And now the other requirements, the school stuff, if it's books, pens, and such. So we forgo more of luxury and... Okay, when I wake up, I have to get breakfast for 50 shillings. That is some milk and maybe a little snacks. I make my breakfast and go to school. When I'm in school, if I'm not in the house, I'll have to buy lunch from outside. That can cost almost 100.
But times are tough for everyone. Students have to rely more on their parents and guardians to sustain them. Some are lucky to receive help loans, but even that is a paltry 50,000 shillings per year. It's becoming more vital to look for a part-time job or start a small business. Other ways of making quick money, such as betting, even more appealing. Taking more time from study hours, others opt to go home for the weekend so as not to spend.
I think things will get better with time, but it has to be gradual.
I'm always looking for part-time jobs which are not going to hold me so much from studying, like I can do writing.
In the past 70s and 80s, admission to university was dependent on good grades. Meals, accommodation, and even fees was the government's responsibility. Meals were free. Additionally, students received cash allowances every month, the famous boom paid to students for their upkeep. But that is not Catherine's time. Even the loan she gets to survive must be paid back with interest. It won't mean much for her if most of it goes to buying food. Her aspiration is to get employed for a steady income that will give her better quality and standard of living.
The Yonka being cheaper, it is not everything. So I would wish to tell the government that if it's possible, generally the prices of things to be put in a consideration.
Dorcas Wangira, KTN News.
Where are you from?
Oh, yeah, so that's such an interesting perspective. I want to get closing comments now. We've got 3 minutes, so a minute each. Dr. Madenge, I'll start with you. What are the solutions? How do we get ourselves out of this?
I look at it in two ways. One is short-term, one is long-term. In the short-term, we must ensure that there is food for everyone, and therefore the decision to import by government is the right one. And perhaps the consideration should be, should the waiver of duty on white maize be extended to, say, August or September, because already we missed, the harvest that was supposed to be in July, August is not going to be as we expected it. We can already see the long rains, which we'll harvest in September, already that's delayed. And so we're not doing very well. And therefore, in the short term, is close monitoring as to what is happening and changing, removing the duty or extending it to ensure that we can bring food. In the long term, it's important that we ensure that we can increase our productivity. We can ensure that our farmers are farming as a business. So there are several things that needs to be done there, including the issues of climate change. Mm-hmm. So support is important. Allocation to agriculture is very important. Extension has kind of gone down, and therefore information to farmers is no longer available.
That's right.
And therefore, in the long term, we must see how can we increase our production, what support is needed, both from government, from development agencies, from everyone, proactively to increase our production.
And Zetse?
I think in addition to what she says, I think we really need to figure out who is doing what in agriculture in this country. Yeah. I think there needs to be better coordination between national and county government, because they seem to be a bit combative between counties, saying, there seems to be some tension there. I think that's the first thing. And I think secondly, we need to look at the structural issues in addition to what she's talking about, is sort of, can we manage our post-harvest losses? Could we make sure that we're planting the right things at the right time, increase our productivity per hectare, and sort of make it easier for young people to even get involved in farming? Because right now, farming is a very rural activity. I think the average age of a farmer is 60 years, I think, right now in Kenya. So I think we really need to make it a lucrative business, as she's saying, for young people to get into
Absolutely.
it.
Is this an issue, Dr. Nyoro, that Kenyans will have at the top of their minds? On the 8th of August, you are an economist, you understand food, but you're also a politician. Will this matter?
It will actually matter not on 8th. It's going to matter before. And for me, what I would want to see is a Marshall Plan. Mm-hmm. Because we've talked about this thing until cows have come back home. Mm-hmm. We want to see this, to first of all, stop in this accusation and counter-accusation of NASA accusing Jubilee and Jubilee accusing back. Right. What we want from them, and hopefully this can come out of the presidential debate, is which party has a master plan for making Kenya food secure in the long term. Okay. Which strategies are you going to employ? Right. And then Kenyans can judge for themselves on the way forward, including the issues they've talked about, coordination and who is responsible for what.
Absolutely. And that is the conversation that will be taking place from 10 p.m. Who indeed has the master plan for food security in this country? Joe Ageo, KTN News managing editor, will be speaking to both sides of the political divide. Senator Beatrice Elachi and Senator Moses Kajwang will be joining him from 10 o'clock. Who can make sure Kenyans are food secure? And whatever happened to that food security bill anyway? We've been hearing about it for a number of years now. So that is the discussion that will be happening at 10 o'clock with the politicians. But remember, this conversation continues on social social media. And even as I thank my panelists as they leave, Hassan Juma and Zinzi Kibiku are on our Super Wall, taking a look at what you have to say. Hashtag Kivumbi 2017. Guys?
Ni kweli Zinzi kwamba kunradhi ni mkatiza, lakini mdahalo unaendelea katika mitandao ya kijamii. Manake umesikia wadau hapo wa kilimo na wadau mbalimbali wakisema kuhusiana na gharama ya maisha ilivyo hadi sasa. Tuangalie basi, maana kuna kanda ambayo tumekuandalia kuhusiana na gharama ya maisha. Hebu tuitazame hii kanda kwa haraka haraka, Zinzi, au sio?
Bas. All right, before that video comes in, it was sent to us by none other than Davis Muli, who tweeted us. And we are welcoming you to send us those videos, all right? Take a look at some of this that we've been getting. Hassan, talk to me. Sugar, because it's a must, ukule ugali per day. Do you know something? I agree with him right here. I agree with Kip too, because you take a look at the maize or flour, yeah? 1 kg loose in April 2016 costed you 45 Kenyan shillings. In April 2017, now it costs you 61. This is one powerful tweet that we saw by Patrick. Hassan?
Still waiting for unga to be 90 shillings, just bought one at 160. Namba kwanza tukimbie tumuone Loft polling station kule.
Polling station at Kencom.
At Kencom tujue Lofty, mambo yakoje huko upande wa pili bana? Town huko kukoje?
Mambo Kenya hapa, mwenzangu Hassan Juma na Zinzi Kibiku. Hashtag Kivumbi 2017. Tulikuwa tumefunga kura hapa na tukahesabu kura tukiwa na mwenzangu Zubeida, lakini maziwa yalikuwa yanaongoza kwamba watu wanaweza kuishi bila maziwa, lakini wapigaji kura wamerudi tena, wanasema bado wanaendelea. Kwa hivyo